The Art of Viral Marketing with Brian Switchko, the man who pranked his roommate with Facebook ads.
SubscribeMe.fm.
Hello and welcome to episode number 57 of the Subscribe Me show from SubscribeMe.fm, where I talk about creating membership sites and online courses, how to make, market, and monetize digital content, the world of WordPress, and tools, techniques, and tips that you can use to create a long-term, profitable online business. I'm Ravi Jayagopal. I'm the creator of coolcastplayer.com, a pretty yet powerful audio player and podcast player plugin for your website. Check out Coolcast Player in action on my own website for this podcast at subscribeme.fm, right on the homepage. On today's show, I interview Brian Switchko from ghostinfluence.com. Brian is a brilliant marketer who has some incredible and refreshing ideas about creating content that goes viral. Brian has done some really cool stuff in the past, like he once pulled off a massive prank on his roommate using, wait for it, Facebook ads, which made his roommate completely paranoid, like, say, Will Smith in the movie Enemy of the State. Now, I was going to say like Emma Watson in the movie Circle that came out in 2017, but it was so bad that I know that you probably didn't watch it. And most people listening to this podcast probably didn't watch it either, including the host of the show, yours truly. Anyway, Brian has created some fantastically viral content on reddit.com. Reddit.com users are, incredibly brutally honest and educated, and they're complete geeks and nerds and everything else. They're super hard to impress. Just like a pop-up form on a website is likely to impress somebody in 2017. But if you can post great content that is genuinely useful, genuinely interesting, and there's no element of trickery or sales-pagery, if that's even a word, and they don't sense that you're trying to sell something or trying to get people back to your website just to sign up for your email address to give you their lead magnet, so there's no ulterior motives that they can sense in your content, then your content can go insanely viral by reaching the front page. And back in the day, there was a similar site called Digg, D-I-G-G, and they were the original Reddit. And Digg started the Digg effect, D-I-G-G effect, or the Reddit effect, where if you got on the front page of a website, then you got so much traffic that you're eventually, when you went to Reddit and you clicked on one of the top links, it would say site is down because they already sent so much traffic to that website that it broke down. And back in the day, there was also a WordPress haters joke, which basically said, if you went to a website, if a website hit the front page of Reddit and you went there and it was down, it was usually a WordPress site, which sometimes it was true because back then, we're talking 7-8 years ago, WordPress was very memory intensive. It was not very efficient, and it would crash with a lot of plugins and stuff. So anyway, there was no caching plugins, but that's besides the point. If you're wondering, hey, if you can't link to your website, if you can't get them to follow you back to your site, and you cannot, put them on your list or sell them something, so what's even the point of posting on Reddit in that case? Because how do you do marketing without trying to get people back and on your list and so on? So I asked Brian the exact same question, knowing that you would probably be thinking about exactly the same thing. And the answers he gives on this interview and his ideas and thoughts are so refreshing that they are absolutely worth 10x the price of your attention. So without further ado, I present Brian Switchko, the founder of Ghost Influence, a growing community full of people, strategies, and tools just as clever as him. And I'm not exaggerating in the least bit when I say he's the most interesting man I've met in a very long time. Okay, Brian, so one of my favorite pet peeves with Reddit, I have actually used Reddit a lot in my past. I have actually launched 2 software products with the power of forums, not Reddit. And with the forums, the advantage is they give you a byline, right? Or a signature, as they call it. And you're able to put in links so you can take advantage of writing a great piece of content, relevant piece of content, or answering somebody's question, and then you can leverage your signature that if your answer was good enough and if you said something really interesting or intelligent, then people would go, who's this guy? And then they can go to the bottom and click on your link and go to your website and join your list and things like that. But on Reddit, they're very famous for being extremely allergic to links, right? Especially if it's anything even remotely commercial or self-serving in nature. So you are a Reddit expert. You have done some amazing stuff on Reddit. So talk to us a little bit about how you see Reddit, how you ran into it, how you were able to leverage Reddit, the platform.
Yeah, I think the easiest way of answering the question is with a story of kind of how I got started on Reddit. And basically, I had a marketing agency and kind of decided that I wanted to move away from that and move into my own personal brand, partially out of spite, but that's a different story. And started a blog, which I decided, to be unique. My USP, my unique service proposition, was going to be teaching one thing through stories, not bullet points, because I had never remembered a bullet point that someone had shared with me or that I'd read in an article. I wanted to teach one thing, and I wanted to teach it through the story in which I had learned it. And from a traffic standpoint, when I had that idea and started to build the blog, as it was in development, as I was, having the WordPress put together and all that jazz, I kind of started to question, how am I going to push traffic to this? And I had pushed traffic through Facebook, through Twitter, through every social platform, but I had heard these rumors about server crushing traffic from Reddit, the Reddit hug of death. I'd heard about it, I knew nothing about it, and basically spent about 30 days just kind of immersing myself in Reddit and kind of trying to lurk, trying to comment, trying to submit, trying to figure out, okay, how does this work? And at the end of that 30 days, kind of had a decent feel for Reddit as a whole, and a decent feel specifically for the R marketing community. And I submitted my first blog post, which was about how I had pranked my roommate with targeted Facebook ads, to that community. Hit the top of R marketing, and I think still to this day is the top post. Got cross-posted by someone else to best of. Ended up getting, I think it was 450,000 page views in the first 72 hours of my blog being live.
Wow.
5 million earned media impressions, was featured in Adweek, Business Insider, Forbes, mentioned by Al Jazeera in a privacy, related article, like crazy. And it kind of just hit me in the face with, wow, there's a lot of elements to this. And the first and foremost is, before you even talk about Reddit, you have to design content that is intended to be shared. You can't create something and say, okay, this is going to make me a lot of money. Now I have to push it out to people and get people to, purchase it. You cannot get people. I really kind of try and correct that way of thinking with anyone that I work with, is that you can't get people. You don't capture them. You don't put a leash on them and tell them to do things. You can inspire them. You can, invigorate them. You cannot get them. And so when you're starting from the get-go by creating a piece of content that a certain audience is going to fervently grab and just say, this is amazing, I need to show all of the other people that think like me, that is the type of content that thrives on Reddit. And, before you even get to the content standpoint, the easiest way to leverage Reddit is to do it in reverse, is to figure out, okay, I have an idea. What communities does that idea fit with? If you're talking about a software product, you can go to Internet is Beautiful or entrepreneurship or startups, or like something that is relevant.
You mean the subreddits on Reddit?
Yeah, the communities in Reddit, which are called subreddits. And you find that community, and then you work to understand that community as you would understand a friend. And, just as we come across a piece of content and we send it to a friend in our life, where it's like, every time I come across something that has a golden retriever that's doing something really hilarious, I send it to my friend who I know is obsessed with golden retrievers. I have another friend that's obsessed with French bulldogs. I have another friend that's obsessed with artificial intelligence. I have another friend that's obsessed with VR. Like, those are the people that come to mind when I see something truly unique in that space. And what you have to do is you have to figure out what that subreddit, what the community within that subreddit understands, and then make something for them that is designed to be shared. And a lot of times that means removing, the branding from it and saying, this is something that I find is cool, not this is some, a client that I'm working with. And I mean, it doesn't matter if they're awesome. You still have to package it in an appropriate way and bring it into the conversation where, it doesn't feel forced. Even if you can take something amazing and package it in a forced, kind of language and say, you need to check this out. And it doesn't matter what it is. People are going to be like, well, shut up, because I just don't want to hear it because you're telling me about it.
Right. So you bring up an interesting point. So you have a golden retriever, and people love cat videos and dog videos and cute dog pictures. I come across those on Reddit all the time. So and those get a lot of traction. I understand you can bring a lot of traffic, but if you are selling, let's say, let's take an example. You're selling a dog product, okay? Something specific to training dogs, for example. And one of the things we have seen, since we have both been in marketing for a long time, you probably know that just getting traffic alone is not going to help you sell your product, right? Because a lot of the times, like even if you post something cute on Facebook, you'll get 500,000 likes, but those likes are not going to transform into dollars. That's just the way things are. Because people who like content doesn't necessarily mean they're looking to buy stuff. They're looking to do stuff in that niche. So if somebody loves dog pictures, doesn't mean they're necessarily looking for dog training or dog products, or doesn't even necessarily mean that they own a dog. So how do you go from posting stuff that can get you a lot of traffic to knowing whether that traffic is even, if you post in the relevant subreddit, it might mean that it's targeted to a certain extent, but it still means that it's their general traffic, and does not necessarily mean that it'll translate into anything but traffic. So how do you address that?
It's a manner of thinking, right? So I'm about to turn 30. I'm single. I'm living in Los Angeles, the home of very beautiful people. If I find a girl that is dating someone or is not interested or is, for whatever reason, just not an appropriate match, that does not mean that I should stop talking to her, right? So, I had a bunch of friends over last night, some of which are dating, some of which are in committed relationships. But I met them. I'm like, hey, you're cute. And then kind of realized that they had boyfriends, became friends with their boyfriends. And now we are all friends. Those girls that were not interested in me are still going to be like, oh, you should come over to Brian's house. Like, oh, I have this friend, Brian, because we're friends. And, what most marketers do when they're trying to push content is they think that you are either a match or you're not a match. And if you're not a match, I'm not going to talk to you and you don't matter. And that's wrong. That's very, very wrong. Because when you look at the Facebook prank and how that kind of went viral, 95% of people were not marketers. They just thought it was hilarious. And so the majority of the people who were interested and the majority of people who were talking about it, the majority of people who were sharing it were never going to be my customer. They were never going to help me get to my customer. But those people, by entertaining and kind of, sharing something in a way that they found interesting, they shared it and they brought it to my customer completely unknowingly. And so you can reach your customers by going through your non-customers. If you package something that is interesting to non-customers, they're going to share it. A good example of this is the Save the Bros commercial by Organic Valley. They targeted people who knew bro-y people who wanted a protein shake and made fun of the bro-y people, and then got all of the people who had bro-y friends to share their commercial with their friend who was always in the gym. And so they went after their non-audience to get to their audience. In terms of, like you said, as liking something on Facebook, that is not a buying intent. You're absolutely right. And the same thing with, even subreddits, is that some people will just upvote something because they agree. Some people will upvote something because they like it. Some people will upvote something because they think it needs to be seen by more people. Not everyone who engages with any piece of content, Reddit or otherwise, is going to be interested in taking the next step, the next action, either buying something, signing up, whatever it may be. So what you really have to do is kind of create an immediate value proposition to the people who are seeing it. And, if that's a subreddit, you want to provide value right away, and a fraction of those people will take the next step. But you don't need everyone to take the next step. You need everybody to get a piece of value very quickly, and then allow them to kind of dig in and get more.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a great point. Sideways marketing, where you're not going directly at the customer and using other people to eventually spread the word. And that's, I guess, the basic idea of viral marketing. So how do you position content to reach your target customers? Now, one thing on about upvoting on Reddit is that it's not like sharing on Facebook, right? It stays. Sometimes people will take a link outside of Facebook from a blog or from an article they read online, a news article and fake news, anything and everything, and they'll paste it on Facebook, or they'll use the Facebook share button, and it'll get onto their feed, and then people share it. So there's a bigger viral opportunity in Facebook. But on Reddit, It's not like people are hitting share on Facebook or share on other platforms. So what's in Reddit stays in Reddit. It's like Vegas, right? What happens on Reddit stays in Reddit, at least to begin with. So wouldn't it be like more of an echo chamber? Like same people on Reddit, they're not necessarily reaching your customers. For example, I've spoken to a lot of people over the years about Reddit. I've always used Reddit from many, many, many years ago. And there was dig.com, if you remember.
Very, very familiar.
Yeah, the dig was the one famously Kevin Rose who started. It started the dig effect even before Reddit was big, and then dig kind of died away, and Reddit became the Reddit effect. So it's not like people are taking links from Reddit and sharing it outside of the network. And like I said, I've spoken to a lot of people over the years about Reddit, and nobody really knew that. At least the general population doesn't know. It's almost like people who love viral stuff, the nerds, the geeks, and that kind of stuff. It's almost like a closed-off community which knows about this stuff. So if you're a marketer, it doesn't matter, right, whether you create great content, even if it's created without any commercial intent, if it's created with great virality in mind, with great fun and entertainment in mind, is it not still going to just stay within Reddit? How does it get out of Reddit?
So there's two responses that I have to that. The first is the comparison between Facebook and Reddit. So the thing that I kind of always try and point out is that Reddit is very different structurally in terms of like how a social platform works. So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram are brand focused platforms. So it could be a company, it could be a person, doesn't matter. But what happens when someone goes to one of those platforms is that they find someone on Facebook that they find interesting. Could be a friend, could be a company. They add the friend, they like the company, whatever it may be. And they say, I am interested in this entity and I want to hear more from them. So I am adding them or I'm liking them. And if that entity ever, is uninteresting, so they start, the company starts, spamming, or they just don't like it anymore. They like their apartment complex Facebook page and then they move, so they're no longer interested. Whatever it may be, they have the choice to unlike and disconnect from that entity and no longer hear their voice. Reddit and other democratic platforms is very different in the sense that each of these communities are topic based. And anyone that is, kind of engaged in that community has the ability to submit content. And it's not about who's submitting it as much as it is how much does the content fit the needs of the community and the interests of the community. And the people who bring the most relevant content at the most relevant times are the ones that have those posts lifted. So the goal is find a community that fits, what you have, be it insight and information, product, story, or anything. Find the community that fits and package what you have in the best way possible for those people. I have access to, certain types of people, celebrities, or just interesting people. And I say, okay, if I want to take one of their stories and I want to package it in an interesting way, and I want to get, this company to pay for it, I'll kind of come up with an idea. I'll sell the idea, get someone to pay for it, bring in the relevant people, and I will make a piece of content specifically for a community. Now, the reason that you do that in regards to, content coming into Reddit and leaving, Reddit only has about 5 million active users. It is a niche social platform, but that does not mean that the content stays there. So most journalists and publications will pull content from Reddit, knowing that by the time something has hit the top of a subreddit or Reddit as a whole, the content that is being, shared is proven to be interesting to that group of people. So journalists and publications use Reddit as a platform to basically see what is trending and in a specific topic. And then they look at it and they say, okay, well, the entrepreneurial community is going gaga over this specific story. And I, as a journalist, know that at a maximum, only 5 million people have seen it. So what happened, again, with the Facebook prank originally was that I hit the top of our marketing. Adweek called me and said, we want to interview you right now. We want to get a feature about you on our website right now. And as soon as that went up, Business Insider picked it up and carried it elsewhere. And then I got other calls. I got, calls from radio shows. I got calls from a whole mess of other people. What starts on Reddit does not stay on Reddit, but it's rarely attributed to Reddit.
So they wait for the cream to rise to the top, so to speak. Get it validated through all the filters of the Reddit community and make sure it's kind of pure enough to come up, and then you can take that and run with it.
Yeah, I mean, and I wouldn't necessarily say pure, I'd say proven, is that, the community, if you think of it this way, if you think of it from a numbers perspective, the average Facebook user consumes 660 page views per month. And of those 660 page views, 80% of them are kind of like personalized content, right? Your friend got a haircut, so and so's moving and buying a house, whatever. 20% of that is outside content, so links. On Reddit, users will consume about 1,300 page views per month, and 100% of that is outside content. So the level of consumption of a normal Reddit user is so much higher, 10 times higher than a Facebook user. And what that means is that when they see something, they have a more discerning eye of what's good, right? So my mom's view on a cat video is going to be different than my view on a cat video because I've seen a lot more cat videos. It's kind of like I have a higher degree of experience, so I'm more discerning because I've seen more. And most Redditors have a really solid memory on all of the content that they've consumed over the last 5 years. And if you post something, they in their heads are going to compare what they're seeing against everything that they've seen before, and they're going to vote accordingly. Now, if something makes it to the top of a specific subreddit, a journalist is going to look at that and say, well, the most discerning community on the internet has pushed this to the top of their discussion. Clearly, this is something I should be writing about.
Right. These guys have seen everything, and it's very hard to impress the Reddit community.
Right. But if you can, it carries elsewhere. I mean, and pretty much everywhere else. There's a reason why they call it the front page of the internet.
Now that you got curiosity juices flowing for my audience, talk to us about the pranking story where you pranked your roommate with quote unquote eerily targeted Facebook ads. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, that was back in 2014. It was kind of, I would say the event that shifted my thinking from, standard marketing of putting something up, buying ads, driving traffic, converting through a funnel, like the very, if A, then B type of thinking, pushed me into the I should share stories. And I really enjoy kind of captivating people with stories, marketing or otherwise. It's just very fun to watch. I get immersed into other people's stories. I love telling other people's stories. If you want to read a book, Jonathan Gottschall's The Storytelling Animal is very intriguing. It's a great way to really just, immerse someone in a world that is not their own. When I originally pranked my roommate, I was actually learning Facebook ads, and I was just kind of messing around with retargeting. It was back when retargeting was still a very new thing. I was getting great results, probably like 5 or 10 times better than just normal targeting. And I was like, oh man, this has been awesome. How can I take this to the extreme? Like, at what point does this no longer work? How can I break this? Which is kind of, very Mythbusters. If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. The difference in retargeting is that instead of going to a larger audience, because I had an audience of about 10,000 people, I needed to go to a smaller audience. And I was like, well, what if I did it to like 5 people? What if I did it to one person? So long story short is I targeted my roommate with eerily targeted Facebook ads that knew way too much about his life and made him start to question how closely Facebook was listening to his conversations. And after about 3 weeks, he ended up, I didn't know it at the time, but he had stopped talking to his girlfriend over the phone. He thought the NSA was listening in on him. And I did that about 6 months before I launched the blog. When I launched the blog, I was just like, I have to tell that story. I've told it 100 times at conferences and bars. Just, people go, what do you do for work? And I'm like, well, kind of a weird kind of marketing. Here's an example. And I'd tell that story. And so I was very well rehearsed at how to structure it to make it interesting. All the details can be the same, but obviously you can encapsulate something in a much more colorful package and, talk about, how he responded and how he was, visually freaked out, and he had his shoulders closed and was very jumpy, and he stopped talking to his girlfriend over the phone, and Edward Snowden, was happening at the same time. So he was extra freaked out that the NSA was involved. And, you add in these details that are relevant, but they really just help to kind of colorize that story in someone's mind. And so I'd gotten really good at doing it. When I launched the blog, I wrote that down and I told it very specifically for the marketing audience. I had told it at a few marketing conferences, so I had kind of, structured the story. I'm not a writer, so that's why it took me a very long time to figure out how to phrase that. And I wrote it for the R marketing community, intelligent, irreverent, and interested to explore. But the thing that I took away from that is, and I was quoted in the Observer, I think it was, it came off the tip of my tongue and it seemed, relevant, but I was accused of being a psychopath and offered consulting work for the same reason. And And that notion kind of stuck in my mind of like, I spent $1.70 on paid ads over the course of 3 weeks to screw with my roommate, who, to be fair, it was retaliation. He started it. But I used my professional skills for fun. And I think that regardless of what industry you're in, it's very rare that people experiment. And I think that people should do it more often. A marketing campaign, some people spend anywhere between $1,000 a month to $100,000 a month on Facebook ads. Why not take $100 of that and run an experiment? Create a piece of content that shouldn't work, but you just want to see if it does. Create an ad campaign that shouldn't work, but you have a hunch and you just want to see if it pans out. On a regular basis, I am testing things that should not work. Driving traffic to e-commerce pages where the average load is 60 megs. Like that shouldn't work because it's a 60 megabyte, page. But yet 156,000 people loaded that page in a day. And like it's crazy how often you find out, the crazy ideas that actually work.
So when you targeted your audience, your roommate, did you use like back then Facebook used to allow user ID based on their Facebook ID, or did you just create a custom audience with a couple of emails?
It was a custom audience with his email, which fun fact is there is a line in Facebook's terms of service there that is there because of me. You can no longer do this.
Right, that's what I was thinking, because I have researched that, and they even took out the ability to target using the Facebook user ID, which a lot of people came up with the tools for scraping user IDs from forums and groups and stuff.
Yeah, I don't think I'm responsible for the UID fix, but I definitely am responsible for the small audience size. It was funny. I got a message from a friend that said, congrats. It was right when the article went viral. And he was like, congrats on the article, dude. It's really making the rounds at the office here today. And I'm like, oh, cool. Wait, where does he work again? Oh, Facebook. So I got word through the grapevine that Mark Zuckerberg thought my article was hilarious. And that was just like, I was like, I'm done. I don't need anything else. That's my life is made.
Made, right? You can retire now. Yeah, I wish you had gotten a like from Zuck's account.
I got an email from it was like zuck@fb.com through my contact form, and I don't think it would like it seemed like it was from someone else pretending to be him, but it was funny that someone went through the effort. If it was, I don't know if it was actually Zuckerberg. I'm like, thank you. It was a very nice compliment.
That's incredible.
Hopefully I didn't just give his email away.
Nah, I think he's done enough damage to his stuff. I think when somebody's trying to spam somebody, they're probably gonna send an email to like 50 different combinations. Zuckerberg at Mark at, so they're gonna try every combination.
Totally.
So I'm pretty sure he's spammed out. So you're talking about in our pre call emails, one of the things you said is you can talk about stories around the courtship or dating of new members through content and funnels. So since this podcast is mostly focused on membership sites and online courses and creating new members and funnels and all that stuff, so tell us about what your experience has been with getting new members through your specific content and your specific funnels.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the logic is centered around, I wrote this article a while ago. I think it was titled Sex and Conversion, the Step-by-Step Guide That Guarantees You More of Both. And the metaphor contained within that was kind of just built out was that the internet is the bar, your website is your house, your email list is your bedroom, and customer acquisition is, well, you get the point. And, you're trying to get someone from the bar to your bedroom. And there are different ways of doing that. And there's the way of like, hey, do you want to come home to my bedroom? And you skip from the bar to the bedroom. Now, chances are when that person wakes up in the morning, or when you wake up in the morning, that person's probably not going to be there. That's the one night stand. If you try and jump someone from the bar to your bedroom too quickly, then they're going to think that that's a very short-term relationship, right? So if you want to make a quick sale and you don't give a shit about, maintaining, you don't care about customer retention, or you don't care about, member retention, then sure, go for the one night stand by all means. If you want to keep someone around and actually have a relationship with them, you need to develop that relationship. And in the same way that you develop an interpersonal relationship, you need to, there has to be a courtship process. If someone feels like, you were too easy to get, or you don't provide enough value, or you bring someone in under false pretenses. Like all of these things are, again, in both courtship and in marketing, are the same thing. So you need to have that courtship process. Now, one of the things that, a lot of people immediately jump to do is, I'll give something away, right? I'll give away a PDF, I'll give away, this, free consultation, whatever it may be. There's two things with that. Number one is that a gift with conditions is not a gift, it is a deal. Do not give deals, give gifts. And when I pushed out the Facebook prank article, I didn't have a sales offer on my website. I didn't have any information about working with me. I had a blank contact form, which was name, email, website, message. I didn't say, contact me if you'd like to interview me, contact me if you'd like to hire me. I just said, if you want to send me a message, here you go. And by having that kind of open door, it made people, fill in the gaps themselves. Like, oh, I need an interview, I'll contact them for an interview. I need a consultant, I'll contact them to do consulting. Give people a gift and allow them to determine, how they want to move forward, flirt a little bit. And so the other piece of that is that the more tangible you can make something, the better. There's a lot, if you read anything about behavioral economics, you've got, the book Influence is a great book. I'm trying to go through my Audible. I've been reading a lot of behavioral economics books recently. Influence by Robert Cialdini. Predictably Irrational is a fantastic one by Dan Ariely.
Oh, that's my favorite book all time.
Competing Against Luck is a really great one. All of these are kind of talking about how customers make decisions. And if you're talking about a membership is a monthly thing. You need to keep someone in, you need to give them a reason to stay. If you're dating someone and, the relationship kind of fizzles out and, that's you're like, hey, this isn't going where I thought it was going to go. So I'm going to peace out. Well, let's break up. With a membership, it's really interesting because someone looks at a monthly fee and they say, okay, this is something that I'm going to have to pay every month, kind of like my rent, and like when they see a monthly expense, they think about it as a monthly expense. It is an added line item in their monthly budget that they have to pay every month. If you make it a single time payment, or if you make it a series of payments, then people are like, oh, I'm going to make this payment or these payments, and those payments are going to end at a certain point. So there's kind of that terminus. So they're like, okay, that seems uncomfortable that I have to pay this every month, but it will end so I can deal with that discomfort until this point. If you are doing a monthly thing, that's fine, but you need to make sure that you consistently bring value and you consistently engage people so that they feel, happy that they are making those payments. So I would say the two things to really kind of take away is, do not negate the courtship process. Really try your best to flirt and win people over, provide value without any kind of strings attached, and really give openly. Don't. I think far too many people kind of live behind that walled garden and they say like, look, I'll give you a PDF, but you got to pay to get in, and you never really understand who people are that way. It's kind of it's like, look, I'm trying to make a dating metaphor, but it's like you don't get to actually know who the person is until you get close to them. And that's kind of weird. So, you should never be a different person inside or outside of your community. It should always be the same. Now, I usually segment people based on time. So if I can answer a quick question outside of my community, I will. If someone asks me like, hey, can you help me with my strategy? I'm like, cool, join my community. If it's an easy answer where I can send a link, I'll just send the link. But if it takes me more time, then I'm like, hey, that's what I do in my community. Check it out here. Ghost Influence.
So how do you get, what are the funnels you use yourself to get new members? Do you have stuff, one of the things obviously is interviews like this. Yeah, I've heard you on another interview, and which is how I found you. That's a great strategy. But again, podcasts are long-term, right? It's like a retirement account. It's a long-term play. It's not going to quickly scale, and people are usually running or walking their dog, and by the time they come home, they may or may not remember. But it's a great branding play, but it's still long-term. So what do you do short-term? What kind of marketing do you do for ghostinfluence.com?
Most of it you can't see by design. So most of what I do is as you say long term, but I would kind of long term can be 2 months from now. It can be 2 years later. I still get calls about my Facebook prank article, which was published in September of 2014. And people are like, hey, I just found your Facebook article. That's really awesome. Are you available? Sometimes I will kind of drum up consulting work from those inquiries. Other times I'll pass referrals and take a commission because I just don't have time to do it myself. Um, Podcasts are great, but the thing that I really try and do is I try and find opportunities to create value in as many different and different ways as possible, and as many different avenues as possible. So if I'm talking to you about marketing memberships, I'm speaking at a conference in Australia about e-commerce. I am consulting with influencers on the side. I have an influencer friend who was just texting me this morning saying she's going to a conference and she invited me in Palm Springs, and I'm like, can't go, but it seems awesome. And so the more different audiences that you can inject yourself into with your modalities of thinking, your personality, whatever is relevant, in the more varied ways that you can do that, podcasts, webinars, tagging someone on Instagram, like the more that you seem kind of prolific. And so over the last few years, that's kind of what I've built with Ghost Influence. I haven't really segmented myself into one category of I teach Reddit marketing. Reddit marketing is connected to a lot of other things. You have to have a great product. You have to get a great website, great customer service. You have to have a brand. You have to have brand voice. Like everything is relevant when it comes to Reddit. And so being able to speak on all those different things and connect to experts and, hey, you're doing AI. I have a friend that does AI. Let me introduce you to. Really just building that out externally through content and varying kinds of content is the long-term play. The short-term play is leveraging that privately. I guess I'll give a short-term, long-term example. So I had a photo of me that hit the front page of Imager, about 500,000 views over the course of a weekend. Got a bunch of comments, super awesome. Nothing came from that immediately. I then took that story, packaged it, sold it to a journalist. Sold in the sense that I was like, hey, here's a great story where I went viral on Reddit, and would love to talk about what entrepreneurs do to combat the psychological cost of the pursuit of entrepreneurship. And they ended up suggesting a different angle, which was Reddit marketing and how to drive that much traffic. I drove, I think it was just over 500,000. And so he ended up interviewing me and writing a piece about Reddit marketing and how to drive traffic and impressions. I then took that article and posted it on my Facebook page because all of my friends had seen here's my new profile photo. And then, an hour later, it's like, okay, now I'm at the top of this subreddit. And then like a day later, it's like, okay, I'm at the front page of Imager. That escalated quickly. And then, a week later, it's like, hey, I got featured in the nextweb.com for my, Imager thing. And all these people are like, that's super cool. Well done, Brian. Like ex-girlfriends and friends and my mom. And all these people are liking these posts. But privately, I got like 3 emails from people I hadn't talked to in a year, 2 years, who were working on projects. And they're like, hey, can you help me? So a lot of times it's just fostering discussions. And it's like touching base with people instead of me reaching out on a weekly basis and kind of doing sales calls and saying, hey, how have you been? How are the kids? What are you up to? I'm just sharing interesting things that I'm working on. And the more that I can kind of show that I've got movement going, the more people want to work with me. And so the short-term aspect is really just conversational, right? So instead of spending a ton of time, kind of going out and writing guest posts and pushing my content, I'm finding ways to give value to other people's brands, like doing interviews or providing, short but meaningful advice. And people will, write an article or something and thank me for it. I'll get kind of that really weird link where someone's like, hey, thanks to so-and-so, he's doing really cool and he suggested this. So it's very confusing, which I love because then people come to my site with no expectations and then they find things and they're like, this is pretty cool. And then just providing value personally and reaching out to people and sharing articles and kind of just being present.
I love this, the unassuming marketer angle of it, the whole thing. That's literally not tricking people, but actually being an unassuming person and not doing anything with the sole intention of commercial stuff. That's the whole that's the holy grail of content marketing, I suppose.
Yeah, and from an influence perspective, for all of those who meditate, this will kind of ring true. For all of those who don't meditate, I would recommend it. If you just kind of sit down, close your eyes, and think for a second. Like, think of the person you're trying to sell to, the person you're trying to get their attention, whatever it may be, and just sit down, close your eyes, and be like, what's their life like? What's in their inbox? How many text messages do they have that are unread? Why are they ignoring them? Like, what is the experience of their life like? I had a not a date, a very cute girl over for dinner. It was not a date. I'll reiterate. Uh, and and we ended up spending the entire night talking about how she got hit on like every day. She's gorgeous. She looks like Olivia Wilde. She's single. She's brilliant. She's very accomplished. She's driven. She's a catch. Or she will be a catch when she meets whoever she's interested in. And, she's telling me that she was out on a date with this guy and someone walked up to their table and said, "I'm sorry, is this a date? Because you were very attractive and I'd like to ask for your number." And then like 3 weeks later was on a second date with the same guy and a different person walked up and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, is this a date? I'd like to ask you for your number." And, like that, she has like 15 text messages on her phone that she hadn't responded to from that day. People saying, "Hey, come to this thing," or, people trying to get her to do stuff with them because they're trying to get her attention.
Sounds like all the marketers posting webinar funnels on Facebook. Everybody's trying to sell to you.
Yeah, and if you really want to captivate someone, you really have to take the time to say, what is their experience and how can I be different? How can I stand out? How can I make it so that they want to respond to my text message and not all those others? Like, why was it that she was sitting in my living room eating my food, talking to me for 3 hours, when she had 15 other text messages that she hadn't responded to? And it was because, I stood out. I was different. I wasn't asking for something. I wasn't trying to get something from her. I was trying to give something to her. I was trying to give her I saw that she was really stressed, and she's an old friend that I happened to run into and kind of rekindle the friendship. And I was like, let me let me make dinner for you. Turn off your phone. Like, let's just relax. And that was the most attractive thing to her at the time. Because everybody was trying to be the most interesting, come on this private jet with me with Leonardo DiCaprio and go to Vegas. And like,
let's party on the rooftop. You have no idea how many seminars I've been where the marketer comes and says, "Come on, if you buy today, back of the room, we'll party today on the rooftop of Vegas," and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and it's like, it's at the end of the day, sometimes the soft sell is the hard sell. You got to flip the table and say, "Hey, if you just want to come and smoke some weed and sit in a hot tub, like, we can do that."
Unbelievable stuff. All right, Brian, thank you so much. You've brought up some great points that even I did not think about when it came to Reddit. I think my audience will really love this, the content you have shared with us. So tell us a little bit about Ghost Influence. Where can people reach you? What kind of stuff can you do for them, and how to contact you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a fun conversation that I look forward to sharing with people and kind of pushing out. As far as Ghost Influence, ghostinfluence.com, Ghost Influence on Facebook, Ghost Influence on Twitter, kind of. Ghost Influence itself is a Slack chat community. I kind of, was very frustrated by informational products. I felt that they were always incomplete. If something didn't fit what you were trying to do exactly, you'd get to that point and be like, okay, well, that is not something I should do. So what the heck am I supposed to do? And it's kind of like buying a textbook and not having a teacher. And so Ghost Influence is very much that classroom environment. If you have a question, you raise your hand. They're information, resources, case studies, and a whole bunch of people from a whole different, range of expertise and interests that are working together, from, YouTube influencers to e-commerce, shop owners. Everybody's working together. It's very interesting because it kind of started as an experiment about 1.5 years ago, and watching, someone who is a YouTube influencer that teaches saxophone ask very intelligent questions of someone who is an online publisher and makes their money by selling affiliate links through, Amazon in South America. And they were actually helping each other. They did nothing in the same way, but they thought about things in the same way, right? They're totally different industries, same thought process. And, that kind of information is very helpful because it's unique. One of my favorite terms is cross-discipline creativity. The most impactful things that you can learn are from the people that are not like you. And that is kind of a collection of people within Ghost Influence. So if you have a question, I always try and get people to a case study, a piece of data, or the next step. It is very much a place where 10x was it? I'm trying to remember what I said on my website now. 10x improvements don't require 10x effort.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing an amazing, it's a very different topic for my podcast because I've talked about Reddit, but never really about how to do this unassuming style marketing on Reddit, because I myself have not found much success. I have had some, great upvotes like 600 plus, but never like 100,000 or a lot of traffic and stuff. So
hey, you can still drive meaningful revenue with 600. It's just a matter of where it's placed and how it's structured.
Yeah, I've got to now go dig up my past things and take a look at what else I can do better now that I've read some of your articles and now I talk to you. So I'm armed with a lot more intelligence about Reddit. So thank you so much for that.
Yes, it is very fun to push people into that particular rabbit hole because it will go for years and people will be like, I still haven't found the bottom.
Yeah, thanks. You ruined the next 20 hours of my week. All right, thank you so much for being on the show. Appreciate every last bit of content you shared with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, before I let you go, I have published 2 paid Kindle books in the last few years. I would love to give you a free copy of either one of those paid ebooks. One is about membership sites and online courses called Subscribe Me, the same title as this podcast, and another book about podcasting at podcastingconfessions.com. And all I ask of you is to post a link to subscribeme.fm on your Facebook feed and then tag me in your post. So if you start typing in my name or even a part of it, like you type in the @ symbol and then type in R-A, V as in Victor, I-J-A-Y-A, that should bring up my profile. You can friend me if you want, tag me, post a link to subscribeme.fm. And if you don't mind, recommend the show to your friends and say, maybe a thing or two about the show. Like, hey, check out subscribeme.fm, a podcast that I listen to. Maybe you can recommend this very episode about Reddit and say, how Ravi is the most good-looking Indian dude with the best Indian accent ever, or something like that. And I will get back to you and I'll message you and I'll get you a copy of whichever one of the 2 ebooks you want, Kindle books. So again, one of the books is at podcastingconfessions.com and other one is at subscribeme.fm/book. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please email me at Ravi, R-A-V as in Victor, I, at subscribeme.fm, or check it out, go to my website and click on the Contact Us link there, go to subscribeme.fm, and on the homepage, you'll find a beautiful player, a feed player with all the episodes of this podcast, and that player is powered by, of course, coolcastplayer.com. So let me know what you think about the show or anything at all. Thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate you letting me into your personal space. Cheers and talk soon.
Subscribe me.fm